What is going on, 12s? Welcome back to another episode of the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. My name is Sam. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I will be doing Seahawks free agents keep or walk. I will be examining all the players that the Seahawks, well, not all the players, but the really important players that the Seahawks will have to make a decision on this free agency. And this is going to kind of be the first video in a string of videos leading up to free agency where we are going to kind of be breaking down, hey, what are the needs for this team? And I can't really dive into what the needs of this team are until we break down who is going to be on this team next year. So I'm going to be kind of doing my best to mixing in projecting with also my personal opinion. This is mostly my personal opinion, but there is also a little bit of projection here in saying, hey, do I think the Seahawks will really prioritize bringing this guy back? How do I think the Seahawks feel about this player? While also examining their place in contract projections and their place in the team and everything like that to make a personal opinion of what I think the Seahawks should do with this player and where I think they'll end up going. Now, all the players on this list are from the Athletic top 150 free agents list. So I will not be diving into some of the smaller guys like Derek Young, who is not big enough to be on the top 150 free agents list. I believe the Seahawks have 8 or 7 players on the list, so we'll be talking about those 7 in descending order. So the first player we talk about will be lowest on the list, the last player we talk about will be highest on their list, and I will also be using the contract projections from the Athletics list to discuss whether I would re-sign these players on that contract. So with all of that being said, let's dive right in here with the first player, Josh Jones. Now, this is a guy who's kind of a swing tackle long-term. Last year stepped in for Charles Cross when he went down for a couple games, and this picture's from the Rams game. Played really, really well in that game. Kind of stonewalled Jared Verse on the game-winning 2-point conversion to Eric Saubert. Jones is a valuable tackle. They have him projected to make 1 year, $4.5. I would personally not be surprised to see a team pay him do you remember when the Seahawks signed Brandon Shell and it was like a 2-year, $17 million deal, and it was a guy who they were kind of projecting to start, and he ended up being a solid starter for the Seahawks. But Jones could potentially be a guy who's considered to be a starter. However, the Athletic, his projected contract 1 year, $4.5, they are clearly still projecting him to be a swing tackle long term. For this team, for any team that signs him. And with that being said, I think the Seahawks should keep Josh Jones. He is very, very valuable tackle depth. I think he played well when he got his chance. And, you feel good having him as a backup there. And if you could bring him in on this contract, I would do it. You can never have enough offensive line depth because offensive linemen get hurt, and it is a tough physical position, and guys can get folded up on easily down there. And hey, you're this close to having someone go down and miss 5, 6, 7, 8 games just because their knee got rolled up on. So Jones as an option there is so valuable to me. I think he's a quality player. I think with the contract being in consideration here, 4.5 feels like a really good deal, and you can never have enough offensive line depth, in my opinion. I think Josh Jones feels like an easy bring back with this contract in mind. It's basically the same as the contract he signed last year. I would just re-up him on that and trust that he can come back and give you good football. So not going to talk much about Josh Jones. He's a backup. He's a guy who could play in a pinch if you need him to. Probably could kick into guard as well if you need him to. In general, I think Jones is a quality player, and I think someone who the Seahawks should really look to bring back this year. Next guy, Josh Jobe. This is an interesting one. Now, Jobe, I believe, is ranked somewhere in the 80s on their board. He is 28 years old. He is projected to make 2 years, $20. Now, this is the overall contract. This is not annual salary, so this would be about $10 million a year. But however, I imagine they'd probably kick a lot of the cap hit into next season. Jobe is a good player. The Seahawks essentially were starting him over Reek Woolen. I get that there was kind of a rotation going on there, but that being said, Jobe was pretty much playing a majority of the snaps. I think played really, really well in the Super Bowl, which is obviously where this picture's from. And, I think Jobe in general is a high-quality football player, a high-quality corner, and this feels like a pretty good deal. So with all that being said, I would keep Josh Jobe as well. He was essentially starting for you last year, and, he has a dog in him that I really respect. He's kind of scrappy, chippy, and made just good plays all year long. And, I think in general, Riq Woolen, the potential there is obviously higher. The ability there is higher. But I think on a down-to-down basis, Josh Jobe was probably the better cornerback last year. And, on a 2-year 20, you can bring him back. I think you have to try to bring back at least one. And we'll take a look at Woolen later in this slideshow here. Woolen in general, to me, feels like he will be making a lot of money compared to what Jobe is going to be making, especially considering, like I said, Jobe was essentially starting for you last year. Jobe, at the end of the season, was getting a majority of the snaps at outside corner, and I think on a down-to-down basis, he was a more consistently steady player. And yes, he gets beat, but all corners get beat. And I think in general, Jobe just fits what you want in from a corner in this system, and I think he's earned this contract with how he's played over the last couple years. And in general, Jobe to me feels like a guy who, if you can get him back for $10 million a year, 2-year deal, not a huge commitment. I would even consider doing 3 years, 30 if he really asked for it. He would only be 31 at the end of that deal, and then you can kind of look to move on. But in general, I think Jobe is a high-quality football player. I think Jobe is a really, really solid corner, started a lot of games for you, and, I think if we're talking about this contract, it feels like a no-brainer to me to try to bring back Josh Jobe on this deal. Just a great, great player who, in the Super Bowl, like I said, I think he may have played his best game of the season, maybe outside like week 1 against San Francisco. I think all year he was just very, very steady, and to me, this feels like a given if you can get him on this contract. So bring back Josh Jobe. The next player, Kobe Bryant. This is where it gets interesting. Now, Bryant, I'm not sure if you guys are tapped into like Brady Henderson and what he can report. Brady Henderson on, I believe, the Real Hawk Talk podcast implied that the Seahawks and Kobe Bryant had extension discussions before this season. And according to Brady Henderson, Bryant's asking price was more than double what the Seahawks offered. So there is clearly a difference in what they perceive Kobe Bryant to be. There is a difference in how they view him. And Bryant is a good safety. Like, he might not be a game-changing safety. He's definitely not an elite safety. He's probably not even as good as Julian Love. But with that being said, Julian Love is a great safety. I think Bryant is about as solid as a safety as you can get. He's a leader on the defense. And I think, early on in his career when he was playing corner, maybe didn't fit, but I think you found this natural spot for him at safety where he just absolutely took off, had 4 interceptions this year. Just a high-quality football player, high-quality leader. The question now becomes, a lot of these players on this list are good players. The question for me becomes, where the Seahawks have 7 free, or really, if you take out Josh Jones, 6 free agents who are quality football players that will be making double digits per year in their contracts. There are going to have to be some tough choices here. And unless Kobe Bryant is willing to take a slightly less hometown discount, I'm not even saying that Kobe Bryant isn't necessarily worth $10 million. If Kobe Bryant was your only free agent, I think you bring back Kobe Bryant on this contract because this is a contract that, frankly, you can make work. It's not going to break the bank. But in general, you have to wonder, given everything that is happening with free agency and how many players the Seahawks may have to prioritize, and also factoring in the depth at that position where, hey, the Seahawks have Ty Okada right behind Kobe Bryant. And then even if you want to talk about that, in situations where Devin Witherspoon is in the slot, I know Nicky Manwari was so good at nickel. You could play Nicky Manwari and Julian Love at deep safeties and get away with that. And, you can kind of start to change the rotation. But like I said, Ty Okada is an exclusive rights free agent. He will be back. In general, I think it's kind of difficult to say, you got to pay $10 million for Kobe Bryant because as good as a player as he is, I feel like there may not be a real adequate need at safety. Safeties are fairly easy to find and safeties are fairly cheap. The Seahawks could probably find a quality safety for not that much money. Think about when the Seahawks signed Julian Love a couple years ago. That was like a 2-year, $14 million deal, $16 million deal, not much. And he ended up being a quality player who only got better and better. And now he's a Pro Bowler, like all pro level free safety for you. I think you can find quality safeties on the market for not that much money. You can find quality safeties in the draft for not that much money. And then you also factoring in, you already have 3 other good safeties on the roster when you factor in Nick Ebenwari as a guy who could potentially play deep if you need him to in a pinch. I think you have to let Kobe Bryant walk. I think this is nothing personal. This is not because I don't think he's worth this contract. This is look at the need, look at the position, and then determine whether you want to pay him 3 years, 30. I don't think you can justify it. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I think you're in a place where you're going to have to let him walk. You are going to have to let him go. And it's unfortunate. I like Kobe Bryant as a player. I think the team loves him as a leader. They clearly tried to extend him last offseason. That being said, you just cannot justify this contract compared to the need and the depth on the roster and also the other players that you have in free agency who you might have to prioritize re-signing. Rashid Shaheed. Seahawks obviously acquired Rashid Shaheed mid-season. His projected contract is 3 years, 39. You gave up a 4th and a 5th for this guy. That's serious draft compensation, and it's compensation that like that amounts to a really hefty investment in Rashid Shaheed. In my mind, yes, you won the Super Bowl, so that trade will always be worth it. I think you kind of need to, like, you don't necessarily need to bring him back. It would be a waste of that compensation if you just let him walk. Now, 3 years, $39, $13 million a year. I don't think that's that bad. Shaheed, I think, just had the big play every single time he needed him to. Kick return, punt return, field position. I mean, teams were literally afraid to kick to this guy by the end of the year. And, that led to, you getting the ball at the 35 a lot of the time. Like, think about the Rams. The Rams did not kick to Rashid Shaheed the entire game. You start with the ball at the 35 every single time. That is a true advantage. And, I mean, I still think that his offensive potential within this scheme was not fully tapped. I think there is a higher ceiling here for Shaheed. I think he can take the top off of defenses. And most of all, I think he wants to come back. He's talked several times about wanting to come back, not necessarily to imply that he'll take a hometown discount, but he said, like, hey, I think we're going to get started on talks fairly soon. I think we are going to try to get something done. He said he sees his long-term home as being in Seattle. I think you have to try to hammer out a deal for Rashid Shaheed. I understand you have Cooper Kupp, Torrey Horton, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. You're going to extend JSN this offseason at some point, you have to assume. That being said, Cooper Kupp may only have a year left. And then after Cooper Kupp, you're like, okay, so what do we do? And I think regardless of having Torrey Horton and Rashid Shaheed and Cooper Kupp and JSN, Rashid Shaheed offers a totally different fourth skill set there that proved invaluable for you down the stretch. And I mean, think about how much better the run game got once he came in, and teams had to worry about covering downfield and they have to play a little bit further back. And it's always in the back of their mind, hey, Rashid Shaheed can take the top off this defense. I think having that threat is so valuable. I think $13 million is fairly affordable. Cooper Kupp is not going to be here forever. You're not only signing these guys because you need to win next year. You're signing these guys because you want to keep winning 2 to 3 to 4 years down the road. I think Shaheed offers that. You are one of the best special teams in the NFL because of this guy, because of what he offers. I mean, he had 2 kick returns and a punt return touchdown, like within like a half a season span. That's like elite production. Once again, I think that there's an untapped receiving potential there. And I mean, Sam Darnold had him a couple times in the Super Bowl and he missed him. He had a big play against the Rams. He almost had a big play against the Rams in the first game, got behind Emmanuel Forbes, who made a great play. I think in general, Rashid Shaheed is aching to have a breakout season in this offense. And with what he already offers you with the future outlook of this receiving room, I think you keep Rashid Shaheed on this contract. I think 3 years, 39 is affordable. I think compared to many other receivers in the NFL, this is a doable contract. And you are also factoring in the massive impact that he has in the return game and in the minds of defenses that have to game plan for this guy. And they have to change how they play with their safeties, with their linebackers, how aggressive they are. They have to change the way that they play because Rashid Shaheed's on the field. I think you can't let that walk, especially for only $13 million. I think also your receiving room just isn't that deep. Like, Cooper Kupp is a good receiver. I don't think he's great. Torrey Horton, I think, has potential. He only had 13 catches last year. This is not a guy who was necessarily dominating production-wise, who you can now say, well, this would be the Rashid Shaheed role. In general, I would probably think you have to bring this guy back. So bring back Rashid Shaheed. And now there's not much to talk about with this one. You look at Boye Mafe, who last year was the 4th best edge rusher for you, right? Chenna, Derek Hall, DeMarcus Lawrence, Boye Mafe. He's your number 4. He is a guy who is a good player, sets the edge well, really strong in run defense. The pass rush is maybe not fully there. And The Athletic is projecting him to get 4 years, $73 million, which is a lot of money. That is more than $18 million a year for a guy who has never truly produced at a high level. He's a great rotational pass rusher for you. On this contract, I'm willing to guarantee Boye Mafe will not be on the Seahawks next year, which, it's not great. He's a good player. He's a good piece to have on your defense. I think he plays a lot of things right, and he never really does anything bad. But as a guy who is essentially a really good run defender who has never really had incredible sack production, got demoted once DeMarcus Lawrence and Chenna Nwosu came in this year. I can't justify bringing Boye Mafe back on this contract. And this is probably the contract he's going to get. Edge rushers are really expensive. He is still super, super athletic. He's still only 27 years old. I mean, I think teams are going to bank on this guy being like, this guy could be our number 1 edge rusher, maybe our number 2. I don't think the Seahawks will pay him that money because he's not good enough to be that for your team right now. And like I said, I know like DeMarcus Lawrence, Chenna might not even be on the roster this year. Even if Chenna walks, I still don't think you pay Boye Mafe this contract. And DeMarcus Lawrence will probably be retired within the next year or two. I don't think Boye Mafe is worth it. I would rather just draft an edge rusher. Boye Mafe is not a good enough player to be making this money. And if he goes somewhere and elevates his game and really takes over and maybe he turns into a 10-sack player with a pretty great run defense. If he does, good for Boye Mafe. Really good for him. In general, though, not worth it. He is not worth this contract. You cannot justify that he's worth this contract. And this is a guaranteed walk for Boye Mafe this offseason, who will get his bag somewhere. And you got to respect him for doing that. And you can't hate the grind for Boye. So shout out to him. But yeah, he's going to go. Reek Woolen. 4 years, $76 million. Holy smokes. Reek, like I said earlier when I was talking about Josh Jobe, this is a guy who got demoted. And was in trade discussions. And maybe those were all fake, but that's for a reason. He's not a great tackler. He has major lapses in coverage sometimes. I do think he played pretty well down the stretch. I will give him that. But this guy is going to be paid based on potential. This is a guy who is going to be paid based on the possibility that Reek Woolen will turn into a superstar corner. We haven't really seen great interception production since his rookie year. I think he probably should have more turnovers and picks than he has had in his career. He's improved at tackling. That being said, he's still not very good at it. I think Reek Woolen has the potential to be an elite man coverage corner somewhere if he can kind of fix some of the lapses that he has in general and can tighten up a little bit. The physical tools are there. He is a pretty good player who is hitting the open market, and it will be making elite cornerback money for a free agent. I'm not really sure where this would slot him in. It would basically slot him in at $20 million a year. Let me do some quick research here on corners. So this would place him in the AJ Terrell, Denzel Ward category. Those are like elite corners, very, very good corners, number 1 corners for pretty much every team in the NFL. Rick Woolen at times was your number 3. You have to let him go. I think this is one that's almost confirmed that he will not be on the Seahawks next year. I think Rick Woolen is a quality football player, and I think he will play very, very good football. That being said, specifically for the Seahawks, this contract feels very difficult to justify. Like I said, he was behind Josh Jobe on the depth chart at the end of the year, and with all of that being laid out, how can you justify paying this guy $20 million? How are you going to be your team paying him $20 million with the hopes that he develops for you when he was your third corner for you? I just don't see it. And I think that this is a guy who will go somewhere and be very good, but he will also have those moments. He is not a spotless corner. He is not. I don't think he is a true shutdown number 1. I think he has the potential to do that, but he will be getting paid like a true shutdown number 1. And teams are going to be buying based on the athletic profile that is truly one of one, and hoping that the technical stuff can kind of be ironed out and that he will be able to develop into that true dominant number 1 corner for them. He's not that for the Seahawks. And he will not be on the team next year. He's not as certain as Boye Mafe. If Boye Mafe is a 100% chance that he's leaving, Rick Woolen might be like a 98.5% chance that he's leaving. I'm almost willing to guarantee Rick Woolen won't be on the team next year, and that's just how things work. And he'll go somewhere and he'll be good. It just doesn't make sense for the Seahawks, so you have to let him go. Lastly, Kenneth Walker. This is a hot button issue here with Kenny. The Super Bowl run that he had speaks for itself. Like last 6 games after Charbonnet got hurt, this guy put up elite numbers. And I think a lot of people are jumping to the conclusion that you have to pay him. This would be a $13 million contract per year for 4 years. And, I think a lot of people are saying, well, you have to re-sign him, A, because he won Super Bowl MVP, and B, Charbonnet won't be healthy for the first few months next year. I don't know if I'm willing to make a 4-year commitment for a guy who will be a rotational back, and one of the key reasons you may be signing him is because your running back who, let's be honest, if Charbonnet was healthy, you're probably letting Kenneth Walker go. If Charbonnet is not healthy for the first 8 games, 10 games next year, are you going to sign him to a 4-year deal, $13 million APY? I'm a little questionable on that premise that, hey, like, Charbonnet's hurt, let's give Kenneth Walker all this money. I'm having a lot of trouble seeing it. I'm having a lot of trouble justifying it. I think Kenneth Walker is a great, great running back. $13 million a year will put him into like the elite running back company. And if he was going to be like the true number 1, if he was going to be like a bell cow running back, I could justify it. But you were going to let this guy walk if Charbonnet was healthy. And we've seen so many teams have success signing running backs who are, for $3, $4, $5 million, and they end up being really, really good. Look at the Cowboys who just re-signed Javonte Williams yesterday. Williams was a cast-off who they signed for like $3.5 million. He ends up having like a 1,200-yard season on the ground. Running backs are easy to fund. It's not a very good draft class for running backs, but I think we've seen running backs who are picked late in drafts be successful for teams. And Kenneth Walker for $13 million, based on the 6-game run that he had with the mix of Charbonnet injury for 4 years. If this was a 3-year deal or a 2-year deal, I could probably stomach it. A 4-year deal is a legitimate commitment down the road for a position that is infamously unhealthy. And you could be in a situation where you pay Kenneth Walker $13 million a year over the next 4 years. And mostly because, hey, he has a great run towards the end of the season and Charbonnet's hurt. But then if he gets hurt, and starts having injury issues, which I'm not necessarily projecting on him, but hey, like, running backs get injured. It is one of those positions that just breaks you down over time, and injuries happen to a lot of running backs. And that's why running backs, maybe more than any position in the NFL, have the worst longevity because their bodies just get grinded down. I don't know if it makes sense to make a long-term commitment to a guy like Kenneth Walker, who is not a superstar. I think he has the potential to be a superstar if he's getting true number one running back carries. In this offense, he's probably not a superstar. He will be getting paid very, very well compared to other running backs. And it is a long-term commitment. I would probably not want to pay him a 4-year contract with this APY. That's just me. That being said, I feel like you can't let this guy walk for nothing. So, here's what I've proposed. You throw the transition tag on Kenneth Walker. Now, this was proposed yesterday in a tweet from Jeremy Fowler, who said the Jets are considering this for Breece Hall. For those who are unaware of what the transition tag is, this is not the other tag that like the Ravens put on Lamar Jackson a few years ago, where if another team signs him, they have to give you picks. This is not that. This is essentially the transition tag for running backs this year is just over $11 million. It is a 1-year tender, fully guaranteed. And basically you tag that running back. And what it gives you the right to do is it gives you the right to match any contract that he is willing to accept in free agency. If Kenneth Walker wants to, he can accept the $11 million option, which he won't do, but you can put it on him. And it will give you the right of first refusal, which is basically you put this tag on him probably on day one of free agency when a team wants to sign Kenneth Walker. The agent comes to you and says, this is the offer. Here is your chance to either match it, in which case he can come back, or say, we're letting you go. There is no pick compensation for this. You don't get anything out of this. But it does give you the right to let Kenneth Walker hit the open market, experience what the market for him is like, and then match whatever contract he's willing to accept. There maybe you can find that his market isn't as good as it was, and maybe you can match any contract that he's willing to take, or you can let him walk if that money's too much, but it at least gives you the opportunity to match anything that Kenneth Walker might accept. So I think the transition tag makes a lot of sense. You place it on him. It gives you the chance to match anything. It gives you the chance to be 100% sure that the contract for him, his market is too much for you. And then from there, you can move on. And I think you can probably look to sign a running back who maybe makes a little bit more sense for you with a little bit more money. So that's where I fall on Kenneth Walker. 4-year 52 is a little much for me. I am a general proponent of if your running back is not an absolute superstar, do not give them a long-term contract. Hell, I'm even kind of questionable on if your running back is a superstar, do you give them a long-term contract? Because like I said, injuries are so frequent. They're ligament injuries, knee injuries, ankle injuries. They are so constant at that position. And I'm just concerned about the long-term stability of paying a running back this much money when one of the main reasons you're doing it is because you're saying, hey, Zach Charbonnet might not be healthy to start the year. We need somebody. I think you can sign somebody and they can still be an adequate 1-2 punch with Charbonnet, a 1-2 punch that might be good enough to get you back to another Super Bowl. That's just me. Let me know what you guys think, because I know this is a hot button issue. So, to recap, keep Josh Jones, Josh Jobe, Rashid Shaheed. I believe, if my math is right, all three of those contracts, just in pure APY, this is not necessarily cap hit, would add up to about like 27 million in just pure salary average per year. You would let walk Kobe Bryant, Reek Woolen, Boye Mafe. My math is right there. 37. Yeah, that's about 47 million in APY. And then you place the transition tag on Kenneth Walker, which would be an $11 million tag that he has the option to accept right away. He won't, but he has the option to. And if not, it gives you the chance to match any offer he gets on the open market. So that is where I fall. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please give me your thoughts in the comments below, because there are a lot of guys, a lot of people are begging to bring back Riq Woolen. A lot of people like Kobe Bryant. A lot of people think, hey, Josh Jobe might not be as good as Riq Woolen. Would you rather just overpay for Riq and get the better player? Would you rather go out and would you rather let Rashid Shaheed walk? Do you want to just full out give the money to Kenneth Walker? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I will respond to anything. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like and subscribe if you do. Ring that bell because we will have more videos coming for you very, very soon. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoy. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.